Step away from my door, Marlene. That key doesn't belong in my lock. She froze, hands still wrapped around the gleaming brass handle, lips parting with an exaggerated gasp like she'd just uncovered a criminal plot instead of being caught breaking into a house she didn't own. It's a routine inspection, she snapped, clutching the master key like it gave her some divine authority. Per Article 4C, I have full board access rights. You don't, I cut her off. That clause only applies to common areas. My property line ends right here. And that lock? It was custom machined by my son and me. That key won't ever work here again. I could see her falter then, just a half-second break in her breath. Her authority was all bluff and posture, and I'd just called it. Name's Thomas Greer. I'm a retired fire marshal, and this house, it's not just my home. It's the last piece of my brother I've got left. He built it with his own hands back in '87, left it to me when the cancer finally took him. My son Aaron and I spent 2 months restoring the place. Every shingle, every wire, every brick, laced with memory. And today, some HOA president with a superiority complex thought she could walk through the front door like it belonged to her. Before we go further, where are you watching from? Drop it in the comments. And stick around. You're going to want to see how this story ends, because this isn't the first time she tried me, but it was the last time she got away with it. That door, the one she couldn't open, it was my brother's favorite door, oak, hand-carved. He used to leave me notes behind it when I'd visit as a kid. He called it the good door. There's a nick in the bottom right corner where we dropped a hammer during his last project, a kayak rack we built the week before his final chemo. That nick never got fixed. We left it on purpose. Arlene Vexler wouldn't know that. She only sees threats to her fake order. She sees a crooked mailbox, not the arthritis that kept me from fixing it last fall. She sees wind chimes as excess noise, not the ones my nephew gave us before shipping out. And that master key, she carries it like a badge, uses it to peek into garages, sheds, side yards. Everywhere she thinks control has slipped. I'd been cordial, civil. She'd find me for a hose left uncoiled. I coiled it. She said my grass was a half-inch too high. I mowed it twice. But when she stood there on my porch, trying to enter my brother's house uninvited, that was the moment something snapped. You're trespassing, I said again, slower this time. She flared. As HOA president, I have legal entry permissions. No, I said. You had perceived authority. There's a difference. And just so you know, every second you've stood here has been recorded. Her gaze flicked to the corner of the porch. She noticed the blinking red light on the small dome cam Aaron installed last week. You've made a very serious mistake, Mr. Greer. Funny, that's exactly what I was about to tell her. She turned, storming back down the steps in those ridiculous kitten heels that always click too loud for a woman so small. I closed the door behind her and leaned against the frame, hand still clenched. I wasn't angry. Not exactly. I was calculating. See, my job for 30 years was walking into places I didn't belong. Burned out warehouses, flood-battered buildings, arson ruins, and figuring out who had failed and when. Evidence leaves fingerprints, intentions leave trails. And Marlene, she just left a big one. What she didn't know was that my son Aaron wasn't just a dispatcher. He ran that night shift like a general. And when she'd call 911 to report me for refusing lawful entry, like I knew she would, he would be the one to take the call. But that comes later. For now, all I knew was this. She'd stepped over the line, and the good door had just slammed shut behind her. The next morning, I found a neon orange violation slip tucked into my screen door, right where Marlene had stood the night before, still hot from her failed power trip. This one claimed my security light exceeded brightness thresholds, whatever that meant. I'd installed it 2 weeks ago, after she fined my neighbor for having a sensor light that flickered when squirrels passed through. They said it was a disturbance to community ambiance. Right. I slid the slip into my growing stack, rubber-banded, cataloged by date. It was getting thick. 27 in 3 months. Everything from non-uniform trash bins to unauthorized wind patterns affecting foliage. I'm not joking. One of them said the leaves from my tree were drifting into adjacent property lines. That morning, I decided to play her game, but not like she expected. I dressed clean, pressed shirt, badge on the belt. Old habit, civil enough to walk into the HOA office without being called combative, professional enough to make them squirm a little. Inside, the air felt like toner ink and paranoia. The admin glanced up from her keyboard, startled. "I need to speak with the board," I said flatly. "They're in a closed session," she chirped, already hiding her phone screen. "Open it." Before she could respond, the frosted door cracked open, and there she was, Marlene Wexler, with her clipboard hugged tight to her chest like it had state secrets etched into it. "Mr. Greer," she said, way too calm, "you can't just barge into an active session." I held up the orange slip. "You violated your own response clause. These notices require 24 hours review before issuance. This was timestamped at 614 AUME. That's not even within inspection hours." She blinked, just once, then smiled like a lizard soaking in heat. "Thomas, you have a pattern of infractions. We're simply documenting them for consistency." "Right," I said. "Funny how consistency only happens on my lawn." A board member behind her, mid-30s, shiny hair, bored eyes, whispered something. Marlene stiffened. "We'll review your case during the next compliance session, that's all." "No," I said, planting my voice like I was back on a fire scene. "That's not all. I want a full audit of all notices filed in the last 6 months, and copies of any photos or documentation attached to my property violations. Per Section 12A, I have that right." Her nostrils flared. The assistant looked like she was about to vanish into her chair. "Fine," she snapped. "We'll prepare it." I turned to leave, but paused in the doorway. "Oh, and next time you try to open a door you don't own, call a locksmith, like the rest of us." Outside, I exhaled slow. My hands were colder than I expected. This wasn't rage. This was the onset of readiness. There's a difference. I pulled into my driveway just as Aaron arrived, his Cruiser Ghoul dispatcher polo still on. He carried 2 coffees and that knowing look he always had when something in the system was off. "You really tried your lock, huh?" he asked. Had the key in, couldn't turn it, got mad. He handed me the coffee. "Well, she called it in." I blinked. "What?" "You yet." 20 minutes after she left, claimed possible non-compliance and structural risk. Tried to escalate to code enforcement. "What happened?" "Polls on the line. Flagged it low priority. Routed it to the city queue. Told her unless there was fire, gas, or a screaming match, it wasn't our jurisdiction." A pause passed. Then we both laughed, quietly, but the kind that goes deep. Aaron took a sip and nodded toward the porch. "You still got that paperwork box?" "In the hall closet." "Start pulling copies. We're not just pushing back. We're going to make this procedural." Inside, I opened the hallway cabinet and slid out the beige box. Every notice, every picture, every contradictory line they'd slipped in their bylaws. I started scanning, filing digital copies, tagging timestamps. Aaron leaned on the table, watching me. "She's not going to stop," he said. "Nope," I replied, "but neither am I." Behind him, the old oak door creaked slightly in the breeze, just like it always had. I looked at the nick at the bottom, right. That's when I decided. That door wasn't just going to be symbolic, it was going to be the line she couldn't cross. The next HOA meeting was held in the Willow Heights Rec Hall, a sterile room that always smelled like lemon-scented ammonia and panic. Gray plastic chairs lined up like they were bracing for war. I took the one closest to the back wall, not because I was hiding, but because I wanted the whole room in my sightline. Old habit. Marlene sat at the center of the table, gavel perched beside her coffee thermos like she thought she was presiding over a courtroom. Her smile was tight, calculated. She nodded to the board members, 5 of them tonight. One chair far right remained empty. 3 minutes into roll call, it creaked open. Joel Ramirez stepped in late. Beige polo, HOA-issued clipboard tucked under one arm. He looked, worn, not tired, haunted. There was a hesitation in his gait like his legs had made the choice to walk in, but his conscience hadn't caught up yet. I watched him carefully. He sat down slowly, eyes never quite meeting Marlene's. She launched into her updates. Property violations have increased by 12% this quarter, mostly due to non-standard lighting and unapproved modifications to fencing and decor. She didn't look at me, but the sentence was aimed directly at my side of the room. A neighbor across from me muttered, "Here we go again." I leaned forward. "What was that?" He looked startled. She's been pushing it. My kid got written up for chalk drawings on the sidewalk." "Document it," I said. "Every word, every fine, every time." Marlene tapped the gavel sharply. "Mr. Greer, please hold private conversations until after public business." I gave her a half smile. "Just encouraging community participation." She didn't respond. Joel shifted in his seat, pen tapping lightly against his clipboard. I could tell he wasn't listening. He was somewhere else entirely. His knuckles were white, hands shaking just slightly. He scratched at his wrist like the skin there was burning. That's when I knew he was cracking. They moved on to new compliance actions. That was code for fresh violations, and mine was first. Marlene cleared her throat. "Regarding 428 Sycamore, Thomas Greer's residence, continued resistance to illumination regulations. We moved to issue a Category 2 citation with recommendation for repeat status designation." Category 2 meant triple the fine. Repeat status meant weekly inspections. It was the HOA's version of slow-motion strangulation. She looked to the board for votes. Joel stared at the table. "Joel?" she pressed. He blinked. I need to review the footage again. There's photographic evidence," she said, eyes narrowing. His voice was lower this time. "Still, I want to see it myself." That pause hung in the air like a held breath. Marlene forced a smile. "Too wide, duly noted." That small defiance? It didn't change the vote. I still got hit with the Category 2, but it told me one thing. Joel Ramirez was close to folding. After the meeting, I waited outside. Cool night air, cicadas humming. Joel came out last, head down. "Hey," I called softly. He flinched, literally flinched, before turning. Turned away, help. "I know she's forcing your hand," I said. "You're not built for this kind of guilt." He tried to smile, failed. "You don't know what she's like behind closed doors." "I do," I said. "But I know what you're like, too. You used to help coach my nephew's baseball team. You covered dues for the Delgados during the layoffs." He swallowed. Things got complicated. "She's persistent." "No, she's abusive. And if you wait too long, she'll drag you down with her." He didn't argue, but he didn't agree either. He just stood there, silent, the porch light casting long shadows under his eyes. Then he walked away, clipboard gripped so tightly the metal ring creaked. Back at home, I logged the citation and started flagging patterns, time of issue, frequency, type of violation. A rhythm was forming, like she'd built a cycle. Same types of fines, same dates, targeted properties. Erin leaned over my shoulder. "Think someone's feeding her the reports?" "Maybe. Or maybe she's improvising. Either way, Joel's the weak point." Erin nodded. "He's cracking." "Yeah," I said, "and the right push might break the dam." We didn't celebrate, not yet, but for the first time in weeks I felt the ground shift. If you've ever dealt with an HOA that pushed too far, tell me your story in the comments. What would you have done in my place? And let me know where you're watching from. Part 4 gets intense, because what I caught on camera changed everything. Joel's hesitation gave me just enough rope to start pulling, and if there's one thing 30 years in fire inspection taught me, it's this: small fractures always lead to collapse, if you know where to dig. I didn't sleep that night, not really. I sat in the kitchen with 2 mugs of black coffee and Erin's laptop open in front of me, motion detection logs, porch camera feeds, archived ring alerts from the last 2 months. I wasn't just looking for Marlene, I was looking for her pattern. And at 3:27 IAM, I found it. A grainy clip from 2 Thursdays ago, time-tramped 5:42 AIM HOA. Regulations don't allow inspections before 8 o'clock, but there she was, Marlene, in her tan trench coat, standing at the edge of my property with a flashlight, and Joel Ramirez just a step behind her. His posture was off, hands jammed in his pockets, head down. He wasn't inspecting, he was following. I scrubbed through 2 more clips from that same week, different days, same trench coat, same early hour. Always Joel behind her. Clipboard clutched tight like he was waiting for instructions. I clicked pause and leaned back. "Jade. He's got him scared," I muttered. Erin looked over my shoulder. "Or trapped. Could be blackmail, debt, something personal. Either way, he's in too deep to pull out clean." No, I said, squinting at the screen. He's not in. He's stuck. There's a difference. The next morning, I printed the stills. Just enough to make a point, not enough to burn the whole bridge. Joel wasn't my enemy, not yet, but I needed him to see the noose tightening. I didn't go to the office this time. I waited outside his house. He came out around 7:15, locking the front door with shaking hands. When he saw me, he paused, half surprised, half resigned. We need to talk, I said, holding out the photos. No aggression, just proof. He glanced down, his jaw clenched. Where'd you get these? My porch cam, fully legal. I don't care why you're with her, I care that you're helping her break the rules. He rubbed his forehead. You don't get it, she'll ruin me. She threatened to… I do get it, I cut in. But you're already compromised, and if this goes legal, you'll go down as her accomplice. He didn't speak, just trembled. I saw it again, the same twitch in his wrist, the way his eyes flicked to his front window like someone might be watching. You don't have to confess, I said. Just stop covering for her. Start documenting. Help me get a timeline. He exhaled, a long, quiet breath. She has a storage unit, out by the old train depot. That's where she keeps the records, the real ones, the ones she doesn't want the board to see. That single line changed everything. By the time I got home, Aaron was already pulling zoning records. The depot had been rezoned for commercial overflow 2 years ago. Most of the units sat empty, except one, leased under the name Vexler Holdings, LLC. She's hiding documents off the books, Aran said. That violates about 4 HOA transparency codes. And possibly state statutes on nonprofit governance, I added. We were in the car within 10 minutes. Not to break in. This wasn't a heist. We were gathering evidence of inconsistency. I snapped photos of the unit number, entry logs, time-stamped the visit, all legal, all clean. The security guy didn't ask questions. Guess 2 guys with clipboards and official badges look convincing when they move with purpose. Back home, we started drafting the trap. Not a confrontation, not yet. A formal evidence packet. Photos, timestamps, video stills. Documented violations of internal bylaws, including Marlene's illegal inspections, falsified reports, and off-site record storage. I didn't know how far Joel would go, but I didn't need him to swing the sword just to loosen the chain around his own neck. That night, I left one of the stills from the porch cam in his mailbox. No note, just the image of him standing behind Marlene at 5:42 a.m., looking anywhere but forward. It wasn't a threat. It was a mirror. And people don't like what they see when they realize they're part of the problem. I was halfway through sorting evidence when the memory hit me. The good door, the old closet just inside it, the one with the busted hinge Dad never fixed. My brother used to call it the file pit. It wasn't a metaphor. After dropping the porch cam still into Joel's mailbox the night before, I'd gone to bed, tired but wired, the kind of wired that made sleep feel dishonest. I kept seeing Joel's face frozen in that image, guilt trapped behind his glasses, spine bent just enough to read like submission. By sunrise, I was back at the hallway closet, the same closet my brother used to disappear into with blueprints, tax folders, and those thick HOA binders from the early 90s when they first tried to bully him about the shed he built too close to the fence line. Aaron came out of the kitchen with 2 mugs of coffee. You're going digging? I popped the door open and knelt, hand feeling for the loose edge in the back right corner. He used to stash things here, said he didn't trust a filing cabinet with teeth. What's that mean? I lifted the old floorboard and pointed. That! A flat black plastic case, dust-caked, latches rusted at the edges. I pried it open slowly, and sure enough, there they were, original HOA documents, letters, blueprints, even an early survey map of the community, with notes in my brother's handwriting, "Easement is ours, not theirs. Fight this." Aaron crouched beside me. These were pre-digital. She probably has no idea this version even exists. Exactly, I said, and these prove her claims on property access were false from the start. Tucked in the bottom was a worn yellow legal pad. My brother's handwriting again, this time meeting notes. He'd recorded everything. The names from the old board, the votes, even a signature that matched the one Marlene now forged on compliance slips. Aaron read it, then looked up. This changes everything. It did. I started scanning the documents, slowly building a side-by-side timeline. my fines against their actual rules, and more importantly, the original rules. Somewhere along the way, Marlene had revised them. Quietly, illegally, probably without a vote. The kicker? A note in the margin of one paper. Clause 6B repealed March 2002. No longer grants board entry access. I blinked. That was the clause she tried to use when she jammed her master key into my front door. By noon we had enough to bring hell to her desk, but that wasn't the goal, not yet. This wasn't just about proving her wrong. This was about showing the entire neighborhood why she needed to be removed, publicly, permanently. We need someone neutral, Aaron said, someone who can verify these without it coming from you. Joel, I said. He gave me a look. Think about it, I continued. He's scared, yeah, but he's also tired. And if he's the one who validates these records, it burns Marlene from the inside out. Only if he flips. He's already leaning. We boxed the documents, slid them into a plain manila folder labeled Property Archive Sycamore Lot Dispute, and left it on Joel's porch with a typed note. If you want out, this is your key. The truth is older than her lies. Use it. Then we waited. That night I walked past the porch, past the kayak rack, past the nick in the good door. And I stopped. Not because anything looked different, but because everything felt different. This wasn't just defense anymore. We'd moved to offense. And Marlene, she still thought she was playing chess. What she didn't know was I'd already taken her queen. I didn't sleep that night either. Not from nerves, from anticipation. That old legal pad with my brother's notes had stirred something deep. A sentence had been circling in my head for hours. The truth is older than her lies. Joel had the box now. The next move was his. But I wasn't waiting. The next morning I headed to the depot, not to break in, to watch. From my truck across the street, I had eyes on Unit 41V Bexler Holdings LLC, the one Joel had mentioned, a rust-colored roll-up door flanked by cracked pavement and a broken light buzzing faintly overhead. The whole place reeked of secrets. At 10:12 a.m.e., a familiar SUV pulled in, Marlene's. She got out fast, hair pinned too tight, clutching a leather binder like it held nuclear codes. She didn't even glance around. She opened the unit and stepped inside. I started recording. From across the road, I couldn't see what she was doing inside, but I didn't need to. I timed her. She was in there 47 minutes. When she came out, her expression had changed, jaw tighter, lips pressed like concrete. She looked rattled. She'd seen something in that box Joel returned. The trap was working. I waited another hour before stepping out and walking casually to the depot's front desk. The same rent-a-guard from earlier was back, sipping coffee from a cracked thermos. "You fellas from yesterday," he said. I nodded. "Mind if I log another visit for the archives, just keeping track of community compliance activity?" He grunted. "Sure. Unit number? 41B. He pulled the clipboard. "Some traffic on that one today. Marlene, right?" He squinted. "That the lady with the tight bun and the perfume that could knock out a possum? That's her." "Yeah, signed in just after 10, said she was reorganizing historical records." "Historical," I repeated. "Sure." I logged the timestamp and walked back to the truck, my hands buzzing. Aaron met me at the house later that afternoon with a portable scanner and 2 folders full of recent compliance logs. "She doctored the files," he said without hesitation. "I cross-referenced the ones Joel sent anonymously. They don't match the board-approved copies we requested last year. Different language, different fines, and get this, different timestamp. Enough to blow up her whole tenure." He slid over a printout. One compliance report had Marlene's signature dated January 14th. Problem was, the metadata on the document Joel sent showed it was modified February 6th. "Forgery," I said. "Digital tampering too." We spent the next 2 hours combing through file discrepancies, and near the bottom of one folder, folded inside a housing maintenance invoice, I found something that hit me harder than I expected. A handwritten inspection note. My brother's initials in the corner, SSC, same ones I hadn't seen in over a decade. "Look at this," I whispered, sliding it over. Aaron read it. He documented her. Way back then? Yep, I said, swallowing. She's been pulling the same tricks since the 90s. He just never lived long enough to fight it. I folded the note carefully. That piece wasn't evidence, that was memory. That was legacy. I walked out onto the porch just as the sun dropped behind the tree line, the lake catching that copper glow that always reminded me of summer days and simpler times. The good door creaked softly as I opened it. Not out of damage, but as if it remembered too. The kayak rack still leaned against the side of the house, Dad's old paddle hanging from it like a quiet warning. This was ours, always had been. Inside, Aaron packed the last of the files into a large legal envelope. "You ready for this?" he asked. I'd been ready since the day she tried her master key in my lock. And as the streetlights blinked on one by one, I realized something. Marlene hadn't just declared war on a property owner. She'd declared war on a family, a memory, a name. And that's the last war she'd ever start. Ever been underestimated, only to come back with everything they didn't expect? Drop your story in the comments and let me know where you're tuning in from. Part 7 flips the board, because we're not playing defense anymore. Joel knocked twice. Not a full knock, more like a nervous double tap with the side of his fist. When I opened the door, he looked smaller than usual, shoulders hunched, pale around the eyes. He didn't speak right away. "Shouldn't be here," he mumbled. "You're already here," I said, stepping aside. He hesitated, then crossed the threshold like the floor might fall out from under him. I shut the good door behind him. It groaned like it knew this moment was overdue. Joel didn't sit. He stood just inside the living room, hands stuffed into the sides of his jacket, rocking on his heels like a man whose conscience had blisters. "I read everything," he said. I nodded. Figured. I compared the bylaws in that box with the ones Marlene circulated last year. They're altered. Section 4.1 on board elections, she removed the 2-term limit and changed voting thresholds. That clause about property inspections, it's not just repealed, it was deleted. He paused. She even forged old board signatures to cover the gaps. My jaw clenched. "And you helped her." Joel's head dropped. "I know." Silence hung in the room, heavy and sour. Outside, wind rustled the trees along the lakeside, but inside the only sound was the quiet collapse of a man's self-respect. "Well?" I asked. His answer came out low. "Because she has something on me. From before I moved here. I worked with a developer in Ashford County. Cut corners. Didn't file the right soil permits. Nothing criminal, just bad press. She found out. Said if I didn't help her, she'd leak it to the board, to the press. Said no one would hire me again." "That's extortion," I said. He gave a bitter laugh. "And I let her do it." "You're not the only one she's leaned on," I said. "But you have something no one else does now. Proof." Joel finally looked up. "I want out. I want this done. I want her exposed." "You sure about that?" He reached into his coat and pulled out a small voice recorder. "I recorded our last meeting, yesterday, after she got the box." My chest tightened. He clicked it on. Her voice crackled through the speaker, clipped, venomous, urgent. "Those papers were supposed to be gone. I told you to burn anything with Stewart's name on it. If they find that clause repeal, the board could call a vote to remove me." Then Joel's voice, quieter, measured. "Maybe they should." "What did you say?" I said, "Maybe you've gone too far." The recording cut off. I stared at the little gray device like it was a loaded weapon. "Can I keep this?" I asked. Joel nodded. "I've got copies. Just, please don't drag me through the mud. I'll testify if I have to, just not publicly, not unless I absolutely—" "I won't hang you out to dry," I said. "You gave me what I needed." And he had. That tape was gold. It proved knowledge, intent, fear. It painted her into a corner she couldn't back out of. But more than that, it showed that the house of cards she'd built was already wobbling from the inside. After Joel left, I didn't gloat. I didn't fist pump. I sat at the kitchen table with Aaron and slid the recorder across to him. He pressed play. By the time it ended, he looked up at me like I'd just put down a rabid dog. "We've got her." "Not yet," I said, but we've got the rope. I reached under the table and pulled out the old yellow legal pad. My brother's. His last entries were unfinished, like he knew the fight wasn't his to finish. That line from earlier came back, "The truth is older than her lies." But this time, it carried more weight. Because now, the truth had a voice, and it was hers. We didn't call it revenge. We called it restoration. Aaron laid out the documents on my dining table like he was preparing a battlefield map. Handwritten bylaws, Joel's flash drive with digital tampering timestamps, and the voice recording from our midnight confession. In the center sat my brother's yellow legal pad, pages worn thin but still legible. "First move's gotta feel clean," Aaron said. "Not hostile, just illuminating." "Like a flashlight in a snake pit," I said, pouring coffee. "We're not trying to bite, just making sure people see what's been slithering under their porches." Our target wasn't just Marlene. It was the myth she'd built. One vote at a time, one forged clause at a time. She'd created a structure of control and dressed it up as policy. But now we had the original script. And it was time to stage a reading. I typed the email slowly, every sentence tight with restraint. To the Sycamore Estates HOA Board and homeowners. Enclosed are comparative documents showing significant deviations from our original HOA charter, dated 1992, and the amendments filed up to 2003. Please note sections 3.2, 4.1, and 6b, each of which appears to have been materially altered without proper board procedure or vote. Documentation, timestamped digital logs, and certified copies are attached. A private Dropbox link is available to review the audio testimony from a current board member. We request an open floor meeting within 7 business days as per Article 2 of the Charter, or we will file a formal motion for board review via Marion County HOA Oversight Committee. Then I hit send. That was Monday morning. By Tuesday afternoon, the board's group chat leaked. Neighbors started texting, some outraged, others just confused. The phrase, "illegally amended bylaws," started bouncing around like a grenade with the pin pulled. Wednesday, I got a knock. Not Marlene, Doug Thompson, board treasurer, bald, soft-voiced, and always wearing socks with sandals, like he was allergic to confrontation. "I've been going over the files," he said, eyes darting past me to the living room, to papers still covered half the furniture. "I didn't know about the voice memo, or those dates. If that stuff's real, we've got a problem." "It's real," I said. He nodded slowly, a man aging by the second. "She's already spinning it like a smear campaign." "I don't need to smear her, Doug. I just need the truth to speak louder than she does." He sighed. "I'll call for the meeting. Won't be easy. She's got 2 of the votes locked." Then unlock them. And that was it. I didn't threaten, didn't push. I let the silence and the facts do the work, because facts have a gravity to them when they're undeniable. That night, Aaron found the old camcorder my brother used to film board meetings. In the box with it, a mini DV tape labeled S. Ellis, July 2001, Eastman Dispute. We didn't have a working player, so we drove 40 minutes to a buddy of his who digitized old formats for a living. By midnight, we had it queued up on a laptop. There was my brother, younger, taller, cleaner jawline, standing in front of the HOA board with a stack of documents and that familiar edge in his voice. "I'm not here to argue. I'm here to remind you that none of this land was ever yours. The easement belongs to the homeowners. That's not an opinion. It's on page 2 of the survey filed by your own treasurer." And then a face we recognized. Marlene, sitting in the back, quiet, watching, not yet in charge. Aaron hit pause. "She's been playing the long game." "Not anymore," I said, "because we've got receipts from before she had power." We clipped the footage and uploaded a 45-second excerpt to a new password-protected link. Added it to the Dropbox folder for the board. Thursday morning, I watched the download count tick up. First 2, then 5, then 9. Joel texted at 11:03, "Iman, it's spreading." That afternoon, an anonymous flyer appeared in everyone's mailbox. Printed on simple gray paper, no signatures. "Your home is not a pawn, your vote is not a formality. Come to the open board meeting, ask questions, demand answers. Bring the original documents, if you can still find them." By dusk, the message was clear. The board wasn't united anymore. Marlene had ruled by silence, and silence was dying. The gloves came off Friday morning. A manila envelope slid under my front door before sunrise. No return address, just my name written in shaky cursive across the front. I opened it on the porch, coffee in hand, heart steady. Inside, a cease and desist letter signed Marlene V. Baines, President, Sycamore Estates, HOA. She was trying to look official, typed in bold legalese language, citations pulled from outdated HOA clauses. She accused me of disseminating falsified materials, coercing board members, and endangering neighborhood cohesion. She even underlined defamation. Aaron read it over my shoulder and laughed. She's bluffing. None of this holds. She's not bluffing, I said, folding the letter back into the envelope. She's swinging, wildly. Later that morning, I noticed a few odd things. My trash can wasn't at the curb. Someone had wheeled it into the middle of my driveway. A dead branch had been tossed onto my kayak rack. And my mailbox flag bent back like someone had yanked it hard and let go. Petty things. Childish things. Desperate things. She's trying to rattle you, Aaron said. Yeah, I said, and she's doing it wrong. By noon, Joel texted, emergency board session called, closed door, no public notice. Illegal. I called Doug. She says it's a planning meeting, he mumbled, clearly uncomfortable. Not an official vote, she's reviewing procedures. That's not how our bylaws work. I know, he said. But she's locked herself in with Hal and Trina. I tried knocking, she told me to go polish my sandals. I pinched the bridge of my nose. We're out of quiet moves, time for loud ones. That afternoon, Aaron and I dropped off certified letters to each board member. Inside each, full-page breakdowns of Marlene's policy edits, forged minutes, time-stamped PDFs, and a printed transcript of the voice memo. No threats, just facts. Hard, legal, time-stamped facts. Each letter ended with a single sentence. When the truth comes out in public, I'd like to know you stood on the right side of it. We hand-delivered Marlene's copy to her porch. She was home. She opened the door before we reached the steps. Her lipstick was too bright, blouse buttoned too high, hair so tightly pinned it looked like it hurt. You've made your point, she said without looking at the envelope. I didn't hand it to her. I set it down on the porch rail. She stared at it like it might bite. You never cared about the rules, I said quietly, only the control. She met my eyes, sharp, calculating, still clinging to that withering authority she wore like armor. You think you're better than me because you inherited a house and found a dusty old notebook? No, I said. I think I'm better than someone who tries to open other people's front doors with a master key. Her face twitched. You crossed a line, I added, and you're not going to gaslight a neighborhood into forgetting it. You think they'll back you? She hissed. These people don't want a war. They want peace, stability. They want fairness, I said, and they're about to see what you've been hiding. I turned and walked off, not waiting for her to respond. Her silence behind me wasn't victory, it was fear. We got confirmation of the public meeting at 5:42 p.m. An anonymous board member, Doug, no doubt, sent out a blast email to the entire HOA directory. A motion has been filed to review the procedural validity of current HOA leadership. Emergency open meeting scheduled Sunday evening at the rec hall, all homeowners encouraged to attend. The digital RSVPs started coming in fast. 31 by nightfall. By morning, 56. Doug called again just before midnight. She's furious, he said. Said you're leading a coup. I'm leading a cleanup. Beaver Creek Sprott tyranny. Who's gonna fight, tooth and nail? Letter, I said. I brought gloves. Ever seen someone double down only to realize they just dug their own hole deeper? Tell me where you're watching from and how you'd handle a Marlene on your block, because in part 10, the lights go on and she can't hide in the shadows anymore. The folding chairs were already filled when I walked into the Sycamore Estates rec hall. It smelled like overwaxed tile and stale donuts. 2 ceiling fans creaked overhead. The air was thick with a tension you couldn't cut. You had to live in it. I clocked at least 70 people, some in lawn care polos, others in Sunday casual. Most had printed packets in their laps. My packets, evidence, timelines, margins highlighted in pink and yellow. Doug stood at the front, sweating, not speaking. Then came the heels. Marlene entered like she owned the floor. Crimson suit, nails sharpened, lips lined perfectly, carrying a white binder so thick it needed both arms. Hal trailed her like a human yes button, carrying a mic stand and looking like he regretted everything. She didn't look at me. Didn't need to. Her whole performance was built to erase me. Doug stepped to the podium, tapped the mic, and cleared his throat like he'd swallowed gravel. We'll begin in a moment. Tonight's meeting was called per emergency procedure under Article 2, Section 4C. Homeowners will have an open forum after initial review. The crowd murmured. Marlene cut in before he could finish. Before we waste time with conspiracies, I'd like to present a statement clarifying the so-called evidence circulating this week. Doug blinked. It's not a statement night, Marlene. We start with document review. I am the document review, she snapped. She turned toward the crowd, binder open, voice rising. Ladies and gentlemen, let's be clear. This entire circus is the result of one disgruntled homeowner twisting legacy paperwork and making unsupported claims. The tension cracked. A hand rose in the second row. Ms. Callahan, retired math teacher, never raised her voice in 20 years. Then explain the signature dates, she said. I'm getting to that. You altered the bylaws, said someone in the back. You forged minutes, said another. Marlene's eyes darted across the crowd. She started flipping pages, but her voice trembled under the weight of their silence. This is slander, she said. You're letting a man with a grudge dismantle decades of order. That's when I stepped forward. Didn't need the mic. My name's Jason Ellis. I live on Larchwood, in the house my brother rebuilt after my dad passed. He served on this board 15 years ago. And I'm here tonight not because I hate the rules, but because you broke them. People turned. Some nodded. I held up the yellow legal pad, taped at the edges, dog-eared, filled with Stuart's handwriting. This pad is from my brother. These notes show the original bylaws, before Marlene took power, before the signatures were scrubbed, before the community was treated like tenants under a landlord. Marlene laughed, bitter and forced. You're quoting your dead brother's notebook? No, I said, I'm quoting your own voice. Aaron hit play on the speaker. The voice memo Joel gave us rang out, crisp and brutal. Those papers were supposed to be gone. I told you to burn anything with Stuart's name on it. Silence. Absolute silence. Hal took a slow step back from her. Trina looked like she'd just swallowed a thumbtack. Marlene opened her mouth, then shut it. Her fingers gripped the binder like it could hold her upright. Doug cleared his throat again. This time, his voice didn't shake. I moved to formally suspend the board president, pending full procedural audit and legal review. Joel raised his hand. Seconded. Vote was taken. 9 ayes, 1 abstain. No nays. Just like that, the red jacket wasn't in charge anymore. She didn't speak, just clutched her binder and walked out, heels echoing sharp against the linoleum, her exit louder than any speech she could have made. I stood there for a long second, letting it land. Not a win. A correction. A reset. And judging by the looks around the room, relief, disbelief, and maybe a few quiet tears, it wasn't just mine. We didn't cheer. No one stood up and clapped, no victory chants, no group hugs, just quiet murmurs, papers rustling, people exhaling like they'd been holding their breath for months. The red jacket was gone, but the mess she left behind hadn't vanished with her heels. Doug stayed at the front of the room, both hands gripping the podium like he wasn't sure if it would support him, or if he deserved to lean on it. He coughed, tried again. We'll open the floor for motions, procedural ones first. Anything regarding audit, leadership structure, or... I move to formally invalidate any amendments passed under Marlene Baines since 2014, Ms. Callahan said, standing from her metal chair like she'd been waiting to do that for a decade. Pending legal verification. A murmur rippled across the room again. I second, said Joel, voice steady. Doug looked down at the pad in front of him, shook his head slightly in disbelief, and scribbled the motion. Motion on the floor will open to vote. The vote passed, 8-1 with 1 abstaining again. Trina. Eyes red, jaw locked, but she said nothing. Next came the cleanup. One by one, motions were made. To freeze all enforcement actions pending a review. To open HOA financial records from the past 5 years. To schedule an emergency bylaw restoration committee. By the time the fourth motion hit the floor, I felt Aaron nudge me. "You realize," he whispered, "you just dismantled a regime with a notebook, a camcorder, and a Dropbox link?" "Not me," I said, watching the neighbors raise their hands one by one. "We did." And still, through it all, I kept thinking about the porch swing. The one my dad built when he and Mom first moved here. The one my brother sanded and repainted after the fire in '04. The one Marlene called an unapproved structure last spring and tried to have torn down. I didn't fight for bylaws, I fought for that swing. That history, that right to sit on a quiet evening and not be told it was out of compliance. Halfway through the motions, Trina stood up, visibly shaking. "I need to say something," she said, voice barely carrying. The room stilled again. "I voted with her for years," she went on, eyes scanning the ceiling like she couldn't meet anyone's gaze. "Not because I believed in it, but because she always made it sound like there wasn't another way. She'd change meeting times without notice, she'd lock votes. I didn't want to lose my house." A few heads nodded, quiet understanding. "She told me to lie about the master key," Trina said. "Said it was standard protocol, said it was for emergency access, but it never sat right, not once." Doug spoke gently. "And the voice memo?" "She sent it to me accidentally," Trina whispered. "Thought she was messaging Hal. When I heard it, I knew I couldn't cover anymore." Her hands trembled as she sat back down. No one applauded, but I saw Miss Callahan lean over and touch her arm. Doug adjusted the mic again. "Final motion before adjournment. We need interim leadership, someone to serve as acting president until elections in 90 days. The silence was sudden, uncomfortable. "Jason?" Joel said. I froze. Heads turned. Eyes landed. "I'm not running," I said. "I'm not trying to be in charge. I just want this place to feel fair again." "That's why we want you," Doug said. I didn't move. Didn't answer. But I didn't say no either. The house looked different now. Not in a big way, no renovations, no flashy upgrades, but the air felt settled, like the whole block had finally exhaled and meant it. It'd been 2 weeks since the vote. Doug called the next day to say they were finalizing the forensic audit. Joel dropped off copies of the restored bylaws to every house on Larchwood. Even the Callahans baked a tray of banana bread and left it on my porch with a note. "Thank you for not giving up." But what hit hardest was the swing. It'd been quiet for months, paint chipped, chain rusted, cushion sun-bleached to a pale whisper of what it once was. But that afternoon, I finally fixed it. I oiled the chain links, tightened the hooks, brought out the same blue cushion from the attic, stitched by Mom back in '98. I even found the old wood polish Stuart used to keep under the sink. And when I sat in it again, it didn't creak. Just rocked. Easy, steady. My son Brandon walked out onto the porch, holding 2 mugs. He handed one to me, black coffee, no sugar, just like I liked it. "You really gonna turn down the acting president thing?" he asked, sitting beside me. "I didn't fight this to be in charge," I said. "I fought it so people didn't feel like prisoners in their own homes." He took a sip, nodded. "Still, kinda badass to take down an entire HOA with a camcorder and a binder." I laughed. "That wasn't me, that was everyone waking up." Brandon leaned back, his eyes scanning the street. "You know, I didn't get it before. Why you were always so intense about this house, this block." I glanced at him. Yeah. But after watching what they did, what they almost got away with, I get it now. This place isn't just a house. It's Dad's swing, Stuart's notes, Grandma's rose bush in the backyard. It's us. For a long moment, we just rocked. The sun dipped below the oaks lining the street, casting soft shadows across the lawn, across every porch, every mailbox, every family. Trina had resigned formally 2 days ago, sent me a voicemail, quiet, shaky, but apologetic, said she was moving out in the fall, said she didn't want to be one of them anymore. Hal vanished. No one had seen him since the meeting. Rumor was he'd left town. Maybe shame doesn't need a public vote to land heavy. As for Marlene, legal review was still pending. But word had spread about the forged signatures, the backdated minutes, the secret master keys. Her real punishment wouldn't be prison, be irrelevant, and that's what scared people like her most. I stood up and looked out across the yard. The grass was long again. HOA hadn't filed a single violation since the meeting. They were too busy trying to prove they were even legitimate anymore. But I left it like that on purpose. Let it grow wild for a while. Let people remember we were supposed to live here, not answer to it. As Brandon went inside, I stayed. Rock slow, let the swing carry me, just like it did when I was a kid, when Dad read the paper next to me and Stuart made dumb jokes about lawn gnomes, when the only rule on this street was to respect your neighbors and mow before dark. And for the first time in years, I believed we could get back to that. All it took was refusing to be silent. One voice, one truth, one stubborn refusal to roll over. That's how you kill a dictatorship, with daylight. Justice doesn't always knock loud. Sometimes it just walks up, turns the key, and swings. Have you ever had to fight for your property, your family, or your dignity against people who thought they could control it all? Drop your story in the comments and tell me where you're watching from. Let's keep the conversation going. You're not alone.